Well, well, we're back again for another bit of Seneca knowledge and wisdom that I read and that you have to just put up with. And like I said in my recent blog post, too bad if you wanted something else because I read it, and so I'm going to pass on what I think is important because I think it helps everyone. It helped me, and I think, well, it helps me obviously because when I pass on knowledge to someone else, obviously you learn more of it yourself. But it's also good for you because then you learn something, which is also like kind of good and stuff. But this week's What Is It About? I can't remember the exact letter it's from, but hold on one sec. If you can find this book, Socrates' Letters from a Stoic, then you can go to page 228, and that is where this one is about. And it is in relation to vices, not just like them themselves, but kind of about your associations with other people and what it can have and how it can have an effect on you, essentially. What I'm gonna get to and what Seneca kind of talks about is like you need to be wary of those you kind of associate with. And like, look, nowadays we kind of already know that, like, there's enough kind of information or enough examples where you can kind of see it, where you tend to mirror or tend to kind of assimilate the behaviors, values, and beliefs of those around you. So if you spend a lot of time with certain people, whoever that may be, it's not saying that you'll necessarily become an overnight change. That's why, it's not like we, like chameleons, change our entire personalities just based off who we met this day or met today or tomorrow or whatever. It's more of a slow kind of thing, but it can be quite quick, but it typically comes through a slow manner or, a gradual kind of thing. And what he talks about is be wary of, people who partake in vice, and, he kind of writes it through the perspective of people who are like overeating, alcoholics, drunks, and essentially sex pests and stuff like that, because you got to think back in Roman times, in some of the aristocracy and in the wealthy class, they actually had a room that was dedicated to vomiting. So you would eat so much that you would need to vomit. So you'd go to this vomiting room. I can't remember what it's called, but I do remember these existed. And you'd go there and essentially throw up everything you just ate so that you could then go back to the dinner or the feast that was happening, that was, or the banquet or whatever you want to call it, and you could go back and eat more. Drinking, you can kind of get where that one's coming from. And obviously someone who's a complete sex pest is, you can kind of get that where everything, is dedicated towards that. So what he's saying is, those two are a little bit clearer than the food one, but I thought I'd explain the food one just in case you didn't know or you wanted context on it. But what he's trying to say, and we can view it through the lens of the kind of modern, vices and things like that. One especially being, drug taking, but not just necessarily alcohol, but nowadays there's a whole range of drugs and designer drugs and even prescription drugs that can be abused and negatively impact your life. And what you could say about that, of what he's trying to say, of be wary of associating with people who are vice spreaders, because everyone, like I said, everyone kind of broadcasts their own kind of message of their own values, beliefs, and practices. And the more you go into a clique or group that, holds one ideal or one behavior or value or habit, it's likely that gradually over time, you will then start to assimilate that into who you are. So let's say you're not a crack addict or something, like maybe you don't smoke like meth or whatever or crack, but if you hang around with crackheads all day, it's only a matter of time before eventually one day you're having a bad day and then someone hands you the glass pipe and says, bro, trust me, man, what does it matter, man? Like, life's all this and that, you may as well just do this and we'll make everything better. And then you do it, and then, you smoke crack, and then, then you've kind of gone over that, you've gone through that barrier, you've gone through that limit, and now all of a sudden something that you may have previously gone, I would never do that, because you've now changed the group dynamic of the people you associate with, and they're now not, it's not necessarily always directly, but it can be an indirect encouragement of it, and that encouragement then leads you on to change your behaviors, and things that you, like I said, you would never normally do, you end up doing. And I've seen this personally in myself, when it came to smoking weed. Like, I'd never smoked weed, and my thing was, oh yeah, like, I'm not going to smoke weed because, I just don't want to do it. I feel like it doesn't, whatchamacallit? God, now I'm struggling for the words to come out good, well. It will, I don't know, not necessarily rot the brain, but it kind of, like, wastes your brain's focus and stuff. Like, I guess that's what was trying to say. Like, I was worried that it would, like, ruin my focus on things and what I wanted to be doing. Now, I am someone who smokes weed, and look, it's probably not the best example because, like, I mean, admittedly, weed is, don't believe what they tell you in the anti-drug ads about weed specifically, but weed out of all the drugs is probably the lesser of them, and I think it's probably the easiest to deal with if you need to get, it's not very addictive or anything. It's there's always the habitual thing. It's like, because something's not chemically addictive doesn't mean it's not habitual. That's something you can, ingrain it to your behavior, and then it becomes addicted through like that. I'd say it's more that angle of being a habitual thing. But, I think that's much more easier to break than something that's necessarily like a chemical addiction, which is nicotine. And I've seen people, myself included a little bit, I'd throw myself in this one bracket myself, where you don't smoke and stuff like that, but then you kind of associate with people who do, and then you might reject their offers to, give you a cigarette or to give you whatever, be it vape or whatever kind of other nicotine product. And then you go on that for a while, but then eventually it just comes to a point where, like I said, it happens at different points for different people and for different reasons, but eventually there'll be some sort of flashpoint where things change or something happens which maybe you're normally quite resistant to it, resistant to their offers, but this time you're a little bit weak, and because that happened, you then, partaked in it, and then because, like I said, you've broken that levy, you've kind of broken that first instance. Now of that thing of, oh, well, I will never do this, now it becomes a thing of, well, oh, maybe I only do this sometimes, and then sometimes becomes often, and then often becomes usually all the time. And, that's kind of bad. So what Seneca is trying to say is, be wary of those people that are addicted to vices, like the very obvious ones. Well, meth is probably a good one, like in crack and stuff like that. It's like, probably don't hang out with crackheads, eh? Life advice on the self-development channel. Great work, Jordan. What a great message that is, like, for self-development. It's like, what insight I can give you. Just don't hang out with crackheads and your life will be sweet. Oh my god, what was I thinking when I started this video? Probably nothing, but let's go on with it. So, be cautious of these people and don't spend as much, or try not to spend spend as little time as possible. It's like, and if you notice that these people are people who do have vice ingrained into them, you might think that, oh, well, just because they do it, that's fine for them. It doesn't affect my interactions and relationships with them. Not necessarily. Like, even he's coming to the same conclusion that, they don't have to necessarily physically offer it to you every single time, but the likelihood that over time, by you spending a lot of time with that person, you will eventually, potentially, I'm gonna save myself there because I'm not going to give an absolute statement on it, but you're very likely that you're going to jump on board eventually, and then you kind of pair up and then do the same thing. And I've seen that kind of also kind of play out in, not my life, but, vicariously through my friends, where it's like, you see certain people hang out with certain other people due to the vices that they have, and because they share the same vice, they do a lot more things together and stuff like that. And, it's whatever. And it, like, hanging out becomes a thing that just facilitates them to partake in their vice. It doesn't necessarily have to be actually because they want to see that person. It just happens to be that that person shares their same, you know, enjoyment of that vice. So I guess that's what the point of this video is, just to be wary of, you know, certain people that you'll come across throughout your life, and be aware that, like I said, people don't have to physically offer you something or say, you know, oh, you should do this, or maybe like this. They don't have to physically offer it to you for them to still kind of slowly seek that, what Seneca says, that seed, that like, and which is another word for pretty much what he's saying, is the idea. It's just the idea that you could potentially do it. And once it kind of gets in there, it just needs, just like any plant or any seed needs to, you know, grow and flourish. It just needs time and a little bit of nurturing, and it will take root, and from there it will grow on its own. So, like I said, be wary of people that are like that are very into vices, and because it will trip you up. And, you know, vices, you know, obviously vices aren't good, and neither are virtues when you take them to the absolute extreme, but I'd say vices are probably more easily corrupting when it comes to us as people. So yeah, look, I guess that's the message I kind of want to get across today, and what Seneca was trying to get is to make sure that the people you are associating with are people of high caliber, and people, and not just in what they believe and what they, and how they, and what they say and what they do, but in the way that they also interact with others, and what kind of circles do they run with. And I'm not trying to be an exclusionist or anything and say that you have to, well, fuck it, actually, yeah, well, sorry, I will say being exclusion. There is points, and I think you can actually, you know, with these certain people that you feel that, you know, might be, their behaviors might be influencing you in a negative direction. These are people I think you actually can genuinely cut out of your life, because, I mean, even if you go out and try and help them and try and save them or get them off their vice, that's never going to work. So really the most that can kind of happen is, you know, them passing it on to you. Now, people might say, oh, well, you know, if that's the case, then why should we ever help? Why are there medical services to help drug addicts? That's a different story, because those support staff and those medical staff are professionally trained, medically qualified support workers who are detached from that kind of friendship social paradigm. Them, it's a completely, it's client-patient kind of dynamic, where that person isn't someone they're hanging out with on the weekends and stuff like that. It's not like that. What we're talking about is solely about personal friendships and your social interactions, free of, you know, in like, you know, those kind of dynamics, like, you know, patient-client relationships and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that is it for today. Thank you so much once again for watching, and if you could like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated, because I've been watching you, and I know you haven't been subscribing and you haven't been liking, but I get it. I get it.